officially live on YouTube for the Tuesday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Today, we're doing Not Your Average Insights, my favorite content pillar. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the guy that I like to call GC because of his genius concepts, because he knows how to generate cash flows, because he goes golfing. Damn, he just got back from a golf trip. I couldn't work it in, but really because he's a great co-host and because his name is Greg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you from the golf course, GC. That was the play.
God, of course. And as always, our phenomenal community manager, we call her MTM because she brings us the moments that matter, and because we like to call her around here, Madison the Magnificent. Say hello, Madison.
Hi, everybody.
All right, GC. You know, right now is where we like to welcome everybody that's watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast or watching live on YouTube or in our group, wherever you're at.
You're welcome.
There's a better way to do it. Go to NYAInsights.com. Just register for one of the live shows. Throw it on your calendar for a Tuesday or Thursday. Whenever you're bored, you got nobody to eat lunch with, come eat with us.
Come on down.
Come on down, do the chicken down. And you know what else you get to do?
The roll call, baby.
We got Madison welcoming everybody in the chat saying, welcome to the Not Your Average Investor Show. We got the leadoff hitter.
That's John Henning.
John Henning leading us off in the chat. We got the MVP of the community.
Lee MVP Bishop.
Lee MVP Bishop. Wishing everybody a good afternoon. We got Christopher Lee from Fernandina Beach. He's back in the house. Christopher, good to have you. We got Leslie Wilson from Denver.
Can't wait to see Leslie and everybody else for the tour coming up here soon.
Less than 2 weeks coming up. We got the early bird.
Dean Curry.
Good afternoon, nerds.
Love that.
Love
Welcome.
that. Love that. We got Mark Mills.
All right.
From KC.
He's from the winning city of KC right there.
Super Bowl champion Mark Mills.
Congratulations,
That's
Mark.
his name from henceforth. Super Bowl champion Mark Mills.
There you go.
We got Nadeem Shah from the West Coast. Good morning, good afternoon. He's back in snowy Washington State, but I think Nadeem's coming in a couple of weeks, right?
Oh, yeah. And Nadeem's coming.
Nadeem.
Can't wait to see you, bud.
Pumped to see you, buddy. We got our regulars. The Rileys from Murrieta, California. We also refer to them as
the second family.
The second family. Good to have you, the Rileys, on board. We got Tony D in the house.
All right, baby.
Anthony Dida saying hello, everybody. We got the Mountain Man.
Bill Green.
Billy Green wishing y'all a happy Valentine's Day from the mountains of Colorado. That guy's so smooth. I love it. Who else we got in the house? We got the better Greg. Greg number one.
Greg Stone.
Greg Stone.
So glad he's here.
Howdy from New York. We got Gerard Wendling back in the house saying, what's up? Good to see you, Gerard. Yeah, you heard correctly. We got the Ringmaster.
Andrew Barnhill. Wishing everybody a good day. Looking through this. We got Walt Hart. Is that a new name?
That's a new name. A new name.
All right. Welcome to the party, Walt.
Walt was asking what's happening. Walt, we take ourselves pretty lightly around here. So I hope that you feel welcome. And we hope you keep coming back, Walt. We love having you here. We got a Not Your Average Guest. Somebody's checking in from their text. Just so you know, if you just check in from the text directly, you got to change your name for us to know who it is. You can do that in the Zoom settings. Not that hard, but I understand it might be inconvenient. We got Deborah Schwartz checking in. Good morning, everybody. is Deborah coming?
I think Deborah is coming.
Is that a name that I saw?
think so. Well, I do know that Deborah just donated to the JWB raffle. I will tell you that. Deborah, super, super appreciative of you and everybody, especially here in the community that just donated to the JWB Cares raffle donation. That was amazing.
Love that. Love that. We got David B from Massachusetts. David B, new name?
New name?
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the party.
Massachusetts. We got Mary Rockoff rocking with us here on a good morning from Arizona. Good to have you, Marie. Who else we got? Of course, the patriarch of the first family of the Not Your Average Investor. I'm sure the matriarch is where they're Ken and Carolyn Moline.
We salute you.
And of course, we got our favorite name to pronounce, Aaron O'Neill.
Into the light.
Aaron O'Neill coming in a couple of weeks as well. Aaron, pumped to see you in a couple of weeks. GC, what are we talking about when I say we're going to see everybody in a couple of weeks?
We have got JWB's Not Your Average Investment Tour happening on February 25th. And so pretty much everybody here who's checking in the chat's coming.
That's pretty cool.
You know, it's incredible. It's going to be a great collection of friends. We've got some new folks here as well. Some folks that aren't in the chat that a little bit newer to Jacksonville investing, newer to JWB. We're super excited to welcome some new folks into our community here as well. And the day is just going to be fantastic. If you're a new investor, if you're a longtime investor, if you're a longtime JWB client, there's something here for you. We're going to start off the day with a little bit of education on real estate, investing overall. We're going to have a panel of Not Your Average Investors. So you're going to get to see the success of others for you all to emulate. And then we're going to go and get a little hands-on. We're going to go and do 2 Not Your Average Investor shows, properties of the week at 2 JWB properties here in Jacksonville. And then we're going to end the day with a downtown walking tour. So you can see not only the assets you can invest in, but how it works into the bigger picture about how you can have a better risk-adjusted return when you invest in a growing and revitalizing downtown like we have in Jacksonville. And then last but not least, we're going to kick it off. We're going to have a little happy hour.
We're going to get real happy.
Yeah, and then we're going to announce the raffle donation winner at the happy hour at the end of the day on Saturday. So if you haven't signed up yet, we would love to have you. We still do have a little bit of space. I think we have 35 folks that are signed up now. And so we're super excited. It's cost $39. Lunch is included, and you get to hang out with a bunch of really good people. So hope you guys take us up on that offer.
jwbrealestate.com/tour. If you are still looking to come over here, I think we got some informal stuff, right? Fairy godmother Jen and Lee are reaching out to folks that have registered.
Yeah.
I know that they're doing little party plans on Fridays and maybe Thursday, so if you're coming in early, let us know. And plenty of social stuff happening. But the main event, the stuff that we are in charge of, is on Saturday, full day. It's going to be awesome. That Saturday night, I'm going to do my best to find karaoke, because the last time I really disappointed everybody.
You talked a big game. You have to show up now.
What's my fault?
Okay.
All right, GC, let's kick into
here.
this. We can PTP, primetime player. Speaking of primetime players, we got Whitney Ritchie in the house.
Oh, all right.
What's up, Whit? Good to see you. I know she wasn't feeling well this weekend. I hope you're feeling better, Whit.
Great to have you, Whit, as always.
Insurance superstar, the original Flo from Progressive.
That's true.
Just for the record, that's who they based it on. It's a true story. So, not your average insights, GC. First thing we're kicking off is this idea of Airbnb and how it's performing this year. We kind of touched on this a couple of weeks ago, right? Like this, how the market changing is reacting. Let's get to that in a second. First of all, not a lot of people know JWB owns a couple of Airbnbs. So you've had some hands-on experience. Tell me a little bit about how many you got, the experience, why you got them.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, we, like a lot of people, really started to listen and think about short-term rentals as being an opportunity to invest in. And like anything that we see as potentially an opportunity for us, we're going to put our own money into it, and we're going to see how it performs. We're not just going to jump in and start to try to sell this to clients. So we said, let's go ahead and let's start to acquire some of these units. Over the last couple of years, we have about 40 units now that are short-term rentals over about 4 or 5 properties, and to the tune of about a $5 million investment into short-term rentals.
Okay.
I just share that with you guys. So, it's nice for you to hear kind of perspective for somebody who has invested a lot of money into that. And, it's not something that we have an incentive to sort of overly hype or, discredit, because it's not something we're going to be selling anytime in the near future here. So something that I want to just kind of share with you and update. It is a lot of people are talking about short-term rentals. They were talking a lot about it over the last couple of years. And I think now the conversations it's still being talked about a lot, but it's a little bit different now. And so we just wanted to kind of give you our real world perspective on it.
Love that. So you said 40 units, 40 units, about $5 million worth of investment. So, dip it. You got a big toe in the pool.
We do.
You got a big toe in the pool. You're doing it. When I was talking to you about just overall owning them and their performance and whatnot, I know that you're not running the day-to-day. Is it anything that's like setting off fireworks for you guys, right? Like I know that the majority of what y'all own is rental properties, and
100%.
You are also doing commercial development and a couple of other things in order to test the waters before jumping into the pool. Early signs of, man, is this the thing that's changing your life or anything different?
No. And I'll tell you, for us, listen, we have been doing turnkey rental properties for 17 years now. So the chances that this was going to come in and just absolutely become the next greatest thing for us, that just wasn't ever on the table. The real reason why we decided to allocate this money and this time to do this actually is more about growth of the property management business for us.
Okay.
Because we have the opportunity to acquire property management companies now. It's one of our strategies for growing our number of units under management. That's how we now are I think we're just over 5,000 now. I don't know if we actually eclipsed it now. We're just on the doorstep of 5,000 units that we've managed. And part of the way that we've done that is we've acquired, I believe, 4 property management companies over the last 3 years of various sizes. Sometimes it was 40 units that we acquired in one property management company. Another time it was 400. But to kind of get back to this, short-term rentals for us represented an opportunity to understand this asset class, put our money into it. We thought Jacksonville is a great market to potentially explore that. But the real thing for us is that when we have an opportunity to buy a property management company, a lot of property management companies also serve short-term rentals. And so for us to understand the asset, put our own money into it, would give us the opportunity, if and when those property management companies come up for us to purchase, we didn't have to say no because we couldn't serve the short-term rentals game. And so that was a big reason why we jumped into it. And then, of course, you never know. It's always good for us to kind of innovate. That's a part of our vertically integrated process here, is for us to be, investing in things before they really are a requirement for our business. We've seen that over and over again. And so, to answer your immediate question, it has not been something that has changed the way that we have thought about this. There have been some wins that we can talk about. There have been some not so great things that we can talk about as well. And then I think the big question for us is, how does this perform over the long run? I don't think anybody really has that answer yet. And so, a little bit of what we know, a little bit of something we've been a little bit disappointed in, and then a lot of what we still don't know.
Okay, let's talk about each of those. What are wins?
Well, for the right property, it really does generate more gross revenue for sure, and net revenue. So net income, I mean. So, basically when you're renting out a short-term rental property, many times for the right property, you can double your gross revenue. You can double the amount of rent that you receive, call it on a monthly basis. The expenses do go up, but they certainly don't double. And so for the right property, especially, last name Beach here in Jacksonville, specifically very close to the water, we've seen that it's worked really, really well, and occupancy has stayed very, very high. And it's been a real win on a net income basis. What's been interesting is we also have tried properties that are just kind of, there's A1A here in Jacksonville Beach here. It's 3rd Street, just on the other side of A1A, farther away from the water. Townhomes that have been a little bit farther away from the water really haven't performed that well. And it's really interesting because the amount of time and headache that goes into serving a short-term rental is so much more than what it takes for a long-term rental. So it certainly hasn't been an overwhelming win for properties that just aren't right in that line of kind of desirability.
Got it. So you've experienced some good wins when it is, if I'm hearing this correctly, when it is within a certain distance of an attraction that people are always going to want to go to, right? That people are going to want to travel to, that people are going to want to spend time with. Right. That seems to drop off like the further you get away from it, and the less convenient it becomes to get into an attraction. It's kind of like attraction based. That's
a very good way of saying it. It seems like it's a steeper drop off than we would have expected.
Got it. Based on proximity.
Based on proximity.
Interesting. Here in Jacksonville, at least.
Here in Jacksonville, yeah. And I think the threshold for this to be a win is so much higher because we just underestimated how much time and energy it takes to serve the short-term rental clientele. I mean, I think people think that this is just an extension of, rental property investing. It's really not. You're in the hotel business. And so the threshold for the income gain to be worth it is really high in our opinion. And some of the properties have been and have hit that threshold. It's a clear win. Some haven't. And so that's what you do when you put a few $1 million into it, you learn.
Yeah, that's interesting. And, like our community learns too, right? Like I know that Whitney Ritchie has short-term rentals. I know Leslie has had short-term rentals. They both kind of echoed that same sentiment, right? Like Whitney in reverse sort of said, short-term rental is hospitality industry, more than just taking care of the property itself is kind of what you're saying. And Leslie said she's never done so much laundry as when she was managing and cleaning her Airbnb.
Yeah.
Right. So that makes sense.
Yeah. We've increased staff on our team more than we originally expected to be able to serve the short-term rental properties. And we're only managing short-term rentals internally for ourselves. We were considering, do we roll this out for property management for short-term rentals for others? And we're not there. It is a serious haul. It's a serious amount of work, and it's a different mindset. It's significant retraining of how to serve this. And so, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, we have an opportunity to significantly increase our number of doors under management if we would offer short-term rental property management services out there. We turn them down over and over. And many folks who are our current clients have short-term rentals. They've asked us to do it. We've had to say no because we just don't feel like we're prepared to be able to serve at that level, to the general public yet, because it's a big haul.
Very interesting. Leslie brings up another thing here in the chat. The dynamic pricing model was obnoxious, getting text prompting me to lower the price because properties around me were getting booked over me, right? Like that sounds like a whole nother variable, right? Yeah.
I don't know so much about that. I haven't looked into that specifically. I know my team was a big proponent of the dynamic pricing, but I don't, I hear what you're saying. That could quickly become overwhelming, thinking about potentially having to change that and just kind of like be on call. It's not set it and forget it. Like owning long-term rental properties can't be for you as an owner. And for us, it is just so much more manageable, easy to proactively manage long-term rentals and short-term rentals.
Cool. Bill Green's got some interesting. He said he dipped his big toe in the short-term rental pool for nursing housing and got a bunch of applications. So a bunch of people testing it, which I think is cool. That's part of the value of the community. Learn from each other. Now, if I get it correctly, the way that short-term rentals work is kind of similar to long-term rentals as far as like the numbers go, right? It is a game of occupancy and keeping it occupied, right? Like do you know what the number is of like the threshold of like how many days of the month you want somebody in there? Do you have kind of like a sense of that?
If you can charge twice as much in rent for the right property, if you can keep it occupied, 70% of the time, that's going to be a big win, right? I don't think your expenses are going to outpace it at those numbers. I'm just ballparking right off the bat, though. Don't take this as the Bible here, but your threshold for occupancy can be a lot lower because you are getting so much more rent when it's rented out.
Yeah, so it's not like long-term rentals where essentially you're shooting for like 2 months out of every 5 years to be unoccupied.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like that's what you're shooting for there. In the short term, you're like, man, that's 70% of the month, right? Like 20 out of 30 days, pretty good.
Right.
Stuff like that. And then keeping operational costs down, right? Like whatever you can do to like maximize that idea of lifestyle versus expenses. Am I missing anything there?
Well, you got to pay more taxes on them, just like a hotel, right? If you have short-term stays, you have to pay higher taxes. So there's more expenses that come along with this thing any way you shake it. So
got it. So then the reason why this came up in a past episode is this idea that short-term rentals became a thing somewhere around like 2012 to 2014 was kind of like the birth of Airbnb, right? It was like couch surfer to Airbnb all of a sudden, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a good economy, right? Like it's been a good economy that's been growing. People have had disposable income. We just realized a couple of weeks ago on Not Your Average Insights that experts are predicting a white collar recession.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that the disposable income side of the economy is going to drop off before everything else. And maybe that's the only thing that really drops off. And that's why Disney is laying off a bunch of people, right? So we made the leap to say, oh man, if Disney's laying off a bunch of people, that must mean that they think much fewer people are going to be visiting Disney in the next year or two, which translative property of mathematics here, A plus B, A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. If people aren't traveling to Disney, less people are going to be taking vacations and using the Airbnbs around Orlando and possibly other areas, right? So based on your learnings of proximity to an attraction and people traveling to an attraction, it feels like in this next cycle is going to be a cycle that Airbnb has never seen. And therefore, we don't know what that average occupancy rate is going to be. Have you guys thought about that?
Yeah. I mean, we certainly have thought about it. I think there are more risks when it comes to short-term rentals going forward than there are for long-term rentals for sure. And I just think that overall there's higher upside on the net income level when it comes to short-term rentals, but there's a whole lot more variability and recessions would tend to remove discretionary income from individuals. That typically is what happens. And so discretionary income is what is, providing your rents to go to really attractive places. So I think that is certainly a concern for anybody who owns short-term rentals, probably on their mind. It's not the only concern though, too. I mean, we go back to the pandemic. We saw how the governments don't really know how to regulate short-term rentals. I mean, we're a lot farther along now, and they had to kind of figure it out on the fly. But for many years, or for many months, you could not rent in certain parts of the area for short-term rentals. And it wasn't just a pandemic thing. Those regulations can change at any time. Like, for example, where I live, there is a rule that you can't rent a short-term rental for less than 3 months. It has to be at least a 3-month stay. And what does it take for that rule to go into place? The
right councilman to get a bug up his butt.
Exactly. Yeah. So, there's just more risks overall. I certainly see and have seen that there's more upside on the net income side, but it's I think the biggest thing to let everybody know is that this is not long-term rental. This is not rental properties. Like, just like commercial real estate is not commercial real estate is not single family rental properties. Short-term rentals are not single family long-term rental properties. You have to think about them from a different perspective. There's different pros and potential cons. As long as you do that, then I think you can be successful in them. Again, property selection, though, I think is even more important.
Yeah. And Bill Green, I think about this idea of Bill Green talking about for traveling nurses. That seems like a safer short-term rental strategy than a beachside or Disney focused thing, right? Like traveling nurses probably still travel. It's not discretionary income. They still need a place to stay.
Yeah.
So there is also strategies to like mitigate some risk and not.
I mean, I think if you asked me just flat out, what would be a safer source of demand around Disney or short-term around Disney or to traveling nurses, I probably would have said around Disney, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'm just coming up with this stuff though. I mean, I don't know so much about the demand of traveling nurses, but I think most people think, okay, I'm mitigating my risk if I am investing in a short-term rental property near a beach or near an attraction like Disney. The traveling nurses thing may get to that same level of risk mitigation, but anything that you can do to make sure that you ensure your source of demand, especially going into a recession I think is paramount when you're going into it.
Cool. I love it. Before we summarize everything, Bill Green's got a question. I'm not sure if it's going to be for you or for the community to help. He's saying, hey guys, any inside info on strategies about how to affordably furnish a vacant short-term rentals? Is that your cup of tea?
No, we go way over budget all the time on these things. I mean, yeah. In fact, Bill, I don't know if Bill's going to be on the tour. Bill, are you coming to the tour? I hope you are. Let us know. But you guys are going to be able to see some short-term rental properties. One of the very first buildings that we have completed in our renovations is this wonderful building called the Florida Baptist Convention Building, which is being renamed to 218 Church Street. And this is one that JWB has renovated. It's 24 studio apartments, and half of those are going to be short-term rentals, and half of those are going to be long-term rentals. It's our strategy to kind of test the downtown Jacksonville short-term rental market. And so I know when it came to furnishing the short-term rentals, our budget number did not cover what it really came out to. So, I can't really help you getting under budget, but I'll show you what some furnishings look like. They're very nice. I can tell you that.
There you go. We got the community's asking, right? Like is answering, right? Whit Ritchie said, lots of people post selling their entire house of furniture on Facebook groups. It's a good place. Leslie Wilson saying Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Free Cycle, and thrift stores, right? So there you go. The community answers, even when GC can't. So let's summarize this for the clip, for the reel, for the YouTube reel.
Pictures on
short-term rentals, Airbnbs. What's the good? What's the bad based on your experience? And then what are the ugly things to look out for as this economy is turning?
So short-term rentals represent an opportunity for you to earn more net income from your rental properties, but they also represent an opportunity for you to have more variables and more risk. One of the things that we've learned in our foray into short-term rental properties is that property selection is really, really important, much more important than even in long-term rentals, because you got to be around an attraction. We've noticed that there's more of a decline in demand for very small distances from an attraction than we would have recommended. But I think overall, there's something here to be said for this asset class. But the problem is that if people think that this is just another version of investing in rental properties, they're mistaken. There is a different set of upside, there's a different set of downside, different set of regulation risk, different set of recession risk. So know that before you go into short-term rentals, it's not the same as long-term.
Yeah, correct. One of the risks that we have here in the recession is that the asset class has really only been around under 10 years. It has not been through a full market cycle. You don't know how those occupancy rates are going to perform during a recession, right? Especially this recession that is a white collar recession, being deemed that expendable kind of like extra income is going down. Disney's laying people off. So be wary of those numbers. And I think that's it. I know that we got Kyle Barton in the house, who's a short-term rental. That's what he does.
Oh, love it.
Remember, he came on the show after Fortune Builders, after the Fortune Builders convention.
Oh, fantastic.
And he shared that one of the things that he found success with was not just proximity to Disney, but having these like super themed houses. Like super themed houses perform better than all other houses. So
I just heard that too. That was a pretty cool idea.
Yeah. He blew my mind with. He's got like it's not Harry Potter, it's not Star Wars, because I don't want him to get trademark violations, but it's wizard themed.
There we go.
Space travel themed and
love that.
And stuff like
we all
that.
Love wizards.
All right. If you say so, GC. Okay. Let's go into, before we do our sneaky Super Bowl stuff, let's talk a little bit about some of these numbers that you found in the John Burns report. One of the things that has me interested, GC, is this idea of mortgage rates and where they're at right now versus historical averages. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I know it's been a rough ride for all of us as investors, especially over the last year, as the Fed has jacked up interest rates at the fastest rate in the last 40 years. But I think this is where some real perspective comes in. I think on one hand, we as Americans have very little perspective on just what an inherent advantage we have for the lending market that we have here in the United States, which is largely subsidized in different ways by the government to make sure that we have long-term loans that you can have in place that stay in place for 30 years at a fixed rate. Like that just doesn't exist in almost every other country out there. So if there was a country where it played more into your benefit financially to understand how to use debt as a tool to achieve financial freedom, it's this country, because it is so much easier here than it is in other places in the world. So that's a little bit of perspective I think we need to have. The other perspective we need to have is what really happens. What is a normal interest rate? Mm-hmm. I share with folks when I started to invest 17 years ago, the first loans that I got on my rental properties were at 7% more interest rates, 7.5% interest rates. And I felt pretty good about it. And I would run the numbers and I'd understand that I could get a 12, 13, 14, 15% internal rate of return, like a return on investment. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, even though rates have gone up so much, there's some really good data to support what I've been sharing for a while. And we got that through our friend John Burns and his reporting team. So why don't we show him the screen here?
Why don't we show him the screen? Do you see him?
So this is coming from the monthly call that Burns puts on for all of us. And this was a slide that I really thought had some value for our discussion. So and these mortgage rates are coming at 6.4%. That's what it was, call it, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago or whatnot. And those feel high, right? And that's higher than what it has been for most of the last 14 years, but it's still low by historical standards. If you see there, the historical average for 30-year mortgage rates is actually 7.8%.
Okay.
7.8%. So, to me, I know it hurts to have a mortgage now. I call it 6% or what have you, especially when you had the opportunity to do it at 3.5% or 4% just a year ago or whatnot. But your job as an investor is always to evaluate and do the best risk-adjusted returns. And so if you can get over some of the emotional things that hold a lot of people back, especially from real estate, you'll find that this mortgage rate that you have right now is actually low by historical standards, better than anywhere else in the world almost that you can get mortgages. And when you line it all up, the fact that you're able to get leverage and compare that to other places you could put your money, you have a better risk-adjusted return on investment opportunity. So something else that I'll throw out here that Burns threw out there, and I just thought it was interesting. He says that he believes the Fed would like to keep mortgage rates above 5%. So
that's this green line right here.
Yeah, because his thought is that they went way too low when they did to stimulate the economy. Kind of left the what are arrows in the quiver? What do you normally say? Quiver?
Yeah, I don't know. Keep some arrows in the quiver.
There we go. The Fed
took all the arrows out of the quiver. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, something like that. We want the Fed to be able to stimulate the economy if they need to. Like right now, really hard for the Fed to do anything else other than mess with interest rates. Yeah. So Burns thought, and that just makes sense to me, is that the Fed would like to keep mortgage rates above 5% so that they could stimulate the market if they needed to by dropping interest rates. So I thought that was pretty interesting and made a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense. So if you are listening on the podcast, right, we have this chart here. The headline says 6.4% mortgage rates are higher than most of the last 14 years, but still low by historical standards. You see this really high, like peak here in the 80s when it got up to more than 18%. Then it kind of normalized somewhere around 7% for a while there. And then it's been hanging out under 5% since like 2010, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And then there was this like huge dip when Rich Richie came on here and told everybody that the deal was in the debt, and everybody rushed to it. And then now it's come up some, right? But like there are these two lines at 8% where what's the historical average, and then this green line of 5% where Burns is saying that the Fed's going to want to keep it there in order to have arrows in the quiver in case they ever got to drop it below. It also, Leslie also talks kind of what you just talked about, right? In Germany, you have to put 50% down to even get a mortgage, to even get a loan for a residence, and mortgage rates are even higher there.
Right.
This is the opportunity of being American.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's easy to take for granted the idea that in this country, you are able to use other people's money to build wealth and get leverage. And it is a uniquely American institution that this path of real estate is what is so democratized to everybody else. And if you can put together a couple of shekels, keep your credit at a certain rate, then you have these opportunities that are very like generationally transforming. So even though in the last 14 years, we got used to this like free money faucet coming in,
Right.
that was absurdly low, that opportunity is still there. It's still below historical averages. And when you compare it to the rest of the world, I mean, this is the number one creator of wealth for most millionaires, right?
Yep, absolutely. And if you think that Burns is right here and that the Fed is going to try to keep mortgage rates at 5% or above, right now, when you look at an evaluation, when you buy a JWB turnkey rental property, you're expecting interest rates 5.5%. So, if you're thinking, oh, I'll just wait until rates come down for this, to get back to 4% or 3%, it's largely not going to happen. Like your interest rates right now produce positive cash flow for the investment. You're probably, I don't know how low they'll get to, but they're not going to go to what they were before. So, don't let that hold you back and say, oh, geez, I'll just, the other idea is, listen, even if rates are 5.5% right now, and they do get down to 5 or 4.75 or whatever, you just refinance in the future. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, a credit to our American way of life and how easy really the government makes it for us to use other people's money.
I think that's pretty good reel right there, what we just said there with the American dream and what you just said. So I'm going to go forward. All right. So there's some other nuance in here, right? About mortgage rates and mortgage premiums and all this other stuff that you started explaining to me and I kind of blanked out.
Yeah. You ready to get real nerdy? Who was it? Was it Dean Curdy that said good morning, good afternoon, nerd?
Yeah, Dean, the early bird nerd.
He knows a nerdy episode when he sees one. All right, everybody, get ready to be a huge nerd for 5-10 minutes.
Get your pocket protectors out. Let's go.
So I thought I would walk you guys through mortgage rates actually come to be. How does that market come to be? Because on the other side of us paying this interest rate, it's somebody else receiving this interest rate or this return on investment. It's just another market. There's borrowers and then there's lenders, right? And the lenders are the investors. And so, right now, let's see, for the last couple of months, we've seen interest rates come down a little bit. But what has the Fed done with short-term interest?
They've gone up.
Right? So most people think when the Fed raises rates, long-term interest rates are definitely going to go up. And that's not how it works. They are indirectly related. And I wanted to share how that works with you. Burns did a great job and he gave me a great slide to kind of help see that. And because I think what could happen is we could have interest rates going up from the Fed, the short-term Fed funds rate going up, but not necessarily your long-term interest rates going up later this year.
Okay.
So what actually happens is your long-term interest rates are based off of two things. They're based off of a comparable investment, which is the 10-year treasury. So investors out there who are buying your mortgages have the opportunity to invest in 10-year treasuries. And over time, the market has said that basically whatever the 10-year treasury is, they're going to add about 1.7% on top of that. And that's really what long-term mortgages should trade at. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So in this example, today's mortgage rate on the left here, the 10-year treasury was 3.4% at this time of doing this. But the mortgage premium on top of that, what the market was requiring was actually higher than that 1.7%. It was 2.8%. And that's why when you went to get a mortgage for your 30-year mortgage for your rental properties, actually at 6.15% in this example. So it's two things that actually come together, which the market then, produces an interest rate for you to get your long-term 30-year loan. How did I do there?
Pretty good. I was reading some stuff in the chat also. So
I could have done okay, but you were off in La La Land.
I'm trying to just, keeping track of the community and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's tough.
Give me that one more time.
Job.
Hit me one more time.
All right. So at the end of the day, your long-term interest rate, it's just another market out there. Okay. There's buyers and there's sellers, right? And those people who are investing in mortgages are earning the interest rate that you and me and all of us are paying on our loans.
Got it.
And so that interest rate needs to be high enough for them to want to invest in that. And they have other investment alternatives. And the most closely related alternative that has been proven over multiple market cycles is the 10-year treasury.
Okay.
So you could get a IOU from the federal government over the next 10 years.
Mhm.
And they think that that performs similar to what a mortgage-backed security
Got it.
would return.
Got it. So similar from a risk profile.
From a risk profile, but
Got it.
it's not the same because it's not the federal government.
Mhm.
And over time, the market has shown that there's about a 1.7% premium
Okay.
on top of the 10-year treasury. And that is in normal times what your actual long-term interest rates come out to.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. So then from there, how does that help me make decisions on stuff?
Well, I wanted to show you kind of where the market is right now.
Okay.
So that 1.7% is not actually what's happening
Okay.
over the last few months, 6 months. There's been more of a mortgage premium required for mortgage-backed securities. Okay.
Okay.
So when the Fed raises short-term interest rates, 10-year treasuries go up. They're directly related. But this mortgage premium over the last 3 months, 6 months, 9 months has actually been higher than normal. And what Burns is showing here is that if the mortgage premium would come down to normal, that our interest rates would actually be around 5.1% here.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Interesting. That is fascinating.
Yeah. Most people don't know this.
So that premium is inflated in comparison to historical averages. There's a little bit of fat there that someone's still holding on to. And that could be a real quick area of relief if ever needed, an arrow in the quiver, as some would say.
Yeah. But why do you think that is? This is going to be really interesting. If you get this, I'm going to be super, super.
Why is it inflated?
Yeah. Why is it 2.8% right now when historically it's been 1.7? Who isn't buying these mortgages that used to?
Who isn't buying these mortgages that used to? Banks?
Yes, very good.
Okay.
So banks are not buying mortgage-backed securities like they did a year ago, 2 years ago. Who else is not buying?
I don't even know why banks aren't buying. That was just my guess.
That was really good. It was a really good guess.
B for banks.
Yeah, it was super good. I mean, think about it. Banks right now make money by originating the mortgage. Then they sell the mortgage to Fannie Mae, who then packages up the mortgages into mortgage-backed securities. And then in normal times,
and stuff like that, right?
Which
like funds.
Funds or banks.
Or other banks. Yeah.
Banks used to buy it.
Okay.
Who else is somebody that starts, it's 3-letter acronym, I guess.
The Fed?
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Yeah,
so the Fed, you remember
quantitative easing. Okay,
there you go. So we were talking about this, a year and a half ago, and we said interest rates are going to go up, and they're going to go up fast because the Fed was signaling that they were no longer going to buy mortgage-backed securities. If they were no longer going to buy it, that meant that that demand was not going to be there, and that mortgage premium was going to go up.
Got it.
And that's why I said that rates were going to go up very, very fast. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing here.
That makes sense. Okay. So then that is there to incentivize. There's less demand, or there's less supply of buyers. So they've had to make the price a better premium for more people to want to buy it and fill in that gap that is when the Fed pulled out of the game, and then right now the banks aren't buying as much.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't see the Fed getting back in the game.
Yeah.
But you would think that banks used to buy at a higher level. They used to buy mortgage-backed securities at a higher level. I don't really know why they're not right now. I don't know anybody who does. Yeah. Meaning know why. Yeah. But we should all be rooting for banks to buy more mortgage-backed securities, because in essence, that would really move the needle, drive that premium down, and then our overall long-term interest rates could come down a little bit more.
Awesome. My ride-along partner, Raj, says, my mortgage broker told me that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are planning to make investment property mortgages more expensive starting from May 1st. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't, but I would love for you to send that information along, Raj. It certainly doesn't mean that it's not coming. Things are moving pretty fast out here. So yeah, if you've got a link to the article or whatnot, put that in the group, in the Facebook group would be great, or here in the chat. But yeah. All
right. And just to clarify, that would mean if that happens, those of us that own these properties, we're locked in because we've got these 30-year mortgage rates, right? Like he's talking about like future rates, if anything.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, got it. Cool. Super interesting, GC. All right, give me one last nerd fact, and then I want to get back into jock facts. I want to talk about the Super Bowl.
All right, sounds good. So many people think that when the Fed raises interest rates, that automatically means that your interest rate on the 30-year loan for your investment property is going to go up. But that is not how it works. It's actually comprised of two factors. There's the Fed raising interest rates, which raises the rates on your 10-year treasuries, plus a mortgage premium, which is based on any other market. How many buyers and sellers are out there buying mortgage-backed securities? So we could be in an environment where the Fed is raising short-term interest rates this year, as we pretty much know is going to happen, while your long-term interest rates stay flat or even could come down, even if the Fed does not lower interest rates. So we'll have to see how this shakes out. There's way more variables out there than normal. So we'll have to, of course, keep an eye on it, but it's certainly not a direct correlation that your rates are going to go up from here just because the Fed is raising.
Okay. All right. So that's the real.
That's the real.
Okay. What about this housing supply stuff that you wanted to talk about? You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, we've had a couple of questions from the group, just great questions talking about building. For a while now, we have been talking about how land was being purchased at an incredibly high and fast rate. Builders saw the opportunity to build houses because there was this undersupply of housing. And what did that mean for the market in the short run and the long run? At the end of the day, the market is based on supply and demand. And so if you have an undersupply of market and then you have this huge rush of building, what does that do for pricing in the short run? And how does that affect us for the long run as well? So Burns, again, did a great job kind of giving some perspective, not just short run, which we can talk about, but also long run that I wanted to share with you guys as well.
All right, let's put this slide up here. Here we go. Talk me through it.
Yeah. So I don't, when people need to realize that the underbuilding, the stopping of building that we had coming out of the Great Recession takes decades to recover. And that's a big reason why home prices went so far up and so fast, because we have been undersupplied for housing since the Great Recession. And, no matter what happens in the short run now when it comes to building, the data that John Burns is putting out here shows us that very unlikely that we are going to be overbuilt for this decade. So according to John Burns, we are 1.7 million homes short right now across the United States. And we need an additional 17.1 million homes built in this decade from 2020 to 2030. And he broke down how those homes need to be where the demand is coming from. So 12.7 million new households formed, 500,000 new second homes, 2.3 million teardowns, and 1.7 million undersupplied homes, which is where we are right now. So the takeaway for this is you look at this long-term, this is an asset class that you win by investing in the long run. The risk of oversupply by the year 2030 is very low, according to this, right? We need to build a lot of houses to do that. We just had a huge blitz of housing over the last 2 years. And so you're going to have a lot of housing hit the market. But what have the headlines been lately as far as home builds?
That they're falling off a cliff.
Yeah. All you've been reading about is home builds are down, and sure, homes are being completed, but builders are pulling back on buying land, and builders are pulling back on starting new homes, and construction costs are so high too that builders are pulling back because, it might not make sense for them to build at this time. And so this short-term housing blitz that we have had has been real, and that will affect the market in the short run. But long run, this blitz, honestly, is probably more of what we needed to get back to normal supply and demand for the housing that we are required to have for this asset class as a country. So to me, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, this is a good sign. If it was the other way around and it showed that we were way oversupplied for 10 years in the future, I would look at that and I'd say the same thing. It takes a long time to get under that, right? But the fact that we are undersupplied right now, it takes a long time to produce that many houses to get over that measure. And so what this does is it increases price stability for you, for your rental properties, for rents, and for pricing. So this is a very good thing in the long run.
So what I hear here is H-E-R, here, H-E-R-E, is
H-E, how do you spell here?
The one of where in the place, H-E-R-E.
Oh, what was the other one?
H-E-A-R.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't hear it.
All right.
Just making sure. Spot checking.
So what I'm hearing essentially is everything that we talk about is this idea that we need to look at this as a full market cycle. Right? Like we're investing for the long term. And right now in the short term, there is news that's conflicting with this idea that there is, an undersupply of homes, but at the end of the day, there is an undersupply of home, right? Long term, that's happening. And if we're betting in a full market cycle, we can count on the fact that this undersupply of homes is a risk mitigation for the thing that we are investing in. We're investing in something that is needed, that is not going to go away, that people are going to continue to consume,
right?
And it's going to be there tomorrow.
Yep.
As a rental property investor for workforce housing.
Yep.
Okay. All right. There you go. That's the real. All right, GC. I've been wanting to get to this. I don't know if you know this, but there was a sports match on Sunday night.
There was.
It was between the great American holiday, the Super Bowl, right? I like to tell people that the U.S. has invented two great holidays, Thanksgiving and the Super Bowl.
Love it.
Right? Chiefs versus Eagles. It was the two best teams in the league. They played each other. Epic match. And what I want to talk about here as an investor, we always think about this idea. We all take for granted these sports teams are like the toys of billionaires, right? They're like the investment for billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
And every family that owns an NFL team is a billionaire family and all this stuff. But I was listening to this podcast a week or so ago, right? And it was called My First Million. It's called My First Million. It was a super fun podcast.
Yeah.
I know that we listened to
right.
it. Very guyish, very like broski podcast.
Non-nerdy. Jockey.
It's jockey. And they were talking about the valuations of these NFL teams, right? Average NFL teams are worth $2 to $3 billion. Let's call them $2.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about how you always hear these amazing stories of like how the Hunt family, right? Kansas City is one of the original NFL football teams.
Mm-hmm.
The Hunt family started the NFL. They paid $25,000 in 1960, and now that thing is worth $2.5 billion.
Wow.
Amazing investment. Then they talk about the Eagles, right? The Eagles last sold in 1994 for $185 million, and now it's worth around $2.5 billion.
Wow.
Right? So amazing investments. And then they said, wait a minute. Now that I think about it, that's not that much in compounding returns.
Right.
Right. So we think about these things. So we went back and did the math. KC is pretty impressive. If you paid $25,000 in 1960 and it's worth $2.5 billion now, can you guess what interest rate that was at compounding returns?
I think you told me. It's
about 20%.
20%? Yeah.
That's about 20%. But here's the deal. The Eagles, $185 million in 1994. This one's going to shock you.
Yeah.
It's below what we thought. It's now, assuming it's $2.5 billion. What do you think that is in a compounding return?
10?
9.5%.
Wow.
9.5%. So the takeaway on the show was that most of these teams that we talk about, these toys and these investment vehicles and maker of billionaires, are essentially really rich people looking to get good guaranteed returns at around 15%.
Wow. That's incredible. You know anything else that's like typically selling for about 13, 14, 15% return?
I bought a couple of these little NFL teams here in Jacksonville recently. Yeah, man. Like when I thought about that, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Right now, with this deal incentive in place, with what's going on, you can buy Jacksonville rental property from you guys for 14%. Mm-hmm. You're like investing like a NFL owner billionaire.
I love it, man. I love it. We should just call you Jerry Jones, baby. The house that Pablo Gonzalez built over there. He's got 3 of them.
Call me Jerry Jones. Yeah, man. So, I mean, that just blew my mind.
It blew my mind. When you said that to me, I was like, we were doing this right before. I was like, Pablo, we got to check this math here. Yeah. Like, I want to make sure we see the numbers. And I was like, holy cow, $25,000 investment, which is typically like a down payment right now, or a down payment, when I started to invest, 17 years ago, multiplying on that 14%, 14% or 20% or whatever it is year over year over year, and you're in the billions. Yeah. I'm planning on holding my rental properties for 60 years.
Yeah.
Like, I'm super excited. And I'm in the numbers all day and I didn't realize it was that good.
Yeah. And listen, man, and you've looked at your stuff that you bought in 2006, it's 17%, right? So like you're crushing Lurie over there with the Eagles.
I love it.
I feel like I'm crushing these guys too, right? Like the guy that bought the Eagles.
Yeah.
Not as good so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go.
Exactly.
Right. So I just find that really, really interesting. Right. So, we talk about this stuff. I had never really thought about compounding interest and the power of money. Now I see it everywhere, right? Thanks to this show, thanks to this community, this idea that I'm always looking for these telltale signs of how money performs. And I just, man, when they basically.
Such a good topic, man. You crushed it there. It was like super insightful, super timely. It was jockey. I mean, dude, you crushed it.
It's jockey with a pinch of nerd.
A pinch of nerd.
Like a sophisticated
cool.
jock.
I feel like that's
like the Harvard quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, you are. You're the jockey with the pinch of nerd. I'm the nerdy with the pinch of jock.
Yeah, except you're a much better athlete than I am. So
Sneaky.
It is so sneaky, so sneaky. All right, that's it. Not your average insights, man.
Well done, dude.
I love this content pillar. It's the most fun. We had 70 plus people on for
Saw
this
that,
one, man.
man. That's great.
Epic. That tells me that the community is out there inviting friends, bringing people in. That's exactly what we want you to do. We're actually throwing around the idea of bring a friend to the show day.
Ooh, I like it.
Let me know what you think. Tell me in the chat or let us know in the Facebook group, like, what would we need to incentivize? What would the contest need to be in order to get you to bring a friend to the show one time? And what does the subject need to be? What does your friend want to hear about? Let us know.
I like this. Could be community driven. I love it.
Community driven. Let's see it. Let's see how many, because I got this bet with Greg that if we get 500 people on the show, he's going to do a real stupid dance that I'm going to record. And I really want to do it.
And I'll do it because I did the stupid dance before on a big stage. We just didn't record it. So, I'm game.
All right. So I just want to thank the community. 70 plus people here, 60 plus here, almost an hour later. It never just, leaves me the fact that you're taking an hour of the middle of your day to spend time with us. Mark Mills, welcome to the show. Noah Randara, we hadn't seen, the man that everybody checking in, saying good show. Really, really love having you here. The community is what makes this thing. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. On Thursday, we're going to do a POT Dubs, JWB rental property.
Week.
We're going to dive into the property. Check that out. GC, I'll give you last words.
Yeah, we have a very special announcement happening on Thursday. You don't even know about this.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some good stuff coming on Thursday. So we will. And it's not even the trumpet. It's not the trumpet. It's the beeps.
It's a beep. All right, cool.
So thank you guys for being here. This is just awesome. I think when you are doing something and it's so fun and it's so easy and you see more and more folks showing up, taking time out of their day to be here, is just, it's an incredible feeling, and you guys make this show possible. So thank you guys, and can't wait to see you on Thursday.
And just remember, if you want to be a billionaire like an NFL owner, you're going to have to look for some investments that pay you north of 10% compounding, and you definitely can't be average. See you next week.